Okay, there we go. View, present. Okay, well, welcome again, everyone, to the Kingsland Community Crime Prevention Open House being held this March 16th, 2021. And yeah, thank you everyone for being here and having an interest in improving your community. So the first thing I'd like to touch on is basically something that we've touched on. Yes?
Just if everybody makes sure their mics are muted, we're getting some feedback.
Yeah, okay, let me pull up the participant list and find out. Looks like everyone's muted except for me. So, okay, so at every crime prevention open house that we've done, it's always come wrong to where virtually 80% of all break-ins for vehicles, for residences, for garages has to do with either the vehicle or location has been unlocked, or there have been valuables like a laptop or something left in plain view within the vehicle or within the house. So what the Calgary Police recommend is the 9 p.m. routine. So 9 p.m., remove the valuables and garage door openers from vehicles, lock your vehicles, close the overhead garage door, lock the door between garage and house, close and lock external doors, ensure all windows are shut, and turn on an external light. If we do this every day at 9 p.m. as a routine, it will have a significant impact on crime in the Kingsland area. The Kingsland area is bounded by, to the north, Glenmore Trail, to the east, McLeod Trail, to the south, Heritage Drive, and Elbow Drive to the west. So it's basically a big box. In looking at some of the comments people have made about the area, there is a concern of what impact Chinook Center has on crime, as well as areas in and around the area that have, let's say, abandoned residential properties. The Kingsland Community Association is located sort of very close to McLeod Trail on 505 78th Street Southwest. So one of the things we did do is we sent out a crime and safety perception survey just to get a sense of how people feel about how safe they are in their community. And again, when we do talk about crime and safety, it's going to be the perception of how personally safe we feel has almost as much of an impact of how safe you actually are. So, and we got 9 respondents back. And this is a survey that went out to the attendees tonight, but also went out nextdoor.com. The Kingsland Community also responded to this as well. So probably without any surprise, we can see that the two most areas of concern are what I would call non-violent crimes of opportunity of residential break and enter, and theft from vehicle. Basically, people seeing that valuables are close and then breaking in and getting it. So the perception of crime in the community is that this is a major problem, 77.8% for residential break and enter, and theft from vehicle being fully 100% is a major problem. The violent crimes, the robberies and assaults, are significantly less, with 38% of people believing robberies to be a major problem, 11% for assaults being a major problem, and thefts of vehicles themselves being 33%. So still considered to be reasonably high, especially compared to the other communities where we have done this open house. And that's one of those things that when you look at it, it does make me think that in Kingsland, there's this perception of people feeling kind of unsafe. A lot of the comments that we're mentioning, again, trespassing, forced entry, a lot of this activity happening at night, the identification of homeless and transients, also drug users and the use of the finding of paraphernalia, needles and whatnot. And this idea that reports to police doesn't seem to really lead to any action. So if Constable Tyerman would be able to sort of address the proper way to report these things, what to report, what not to report, and what area to go through would be really good. In terms of the actual crime in the city, it's in the community itself. February, the last month of doing this is kind of a weird chart. You'll find that the most recent data is on the left. So left goes February, January, December, and the total of 12 months is on the right. So on the left-hand side, we can sort of see that we've only had about 9 reported crimes. About 3 of them were break and enter, and 3 of them were vehicle crimes. So as we can see, especially if you look at the trend for other areas, other months of the year, it's unusually low. And maybe perhaps because in February we did have that cold snap, so maybe minus 29-degree weather keeps the criminals indoors, who knows? So that gives you a sense of where things are at. But as you can see from the 12 months total, you can sort of see that there is a very strong alignment between break and enters and concerns for break and enters and theft from vehicle being 60, the number one reported crime in the Kingsland area. So perception and reality are very, very close here. In terms of total crime activity and how we compare to nearby communities, we can say that we're number 3. Acadia takes the cake, the dubious cake of having 302 reported crimes in the area, with Haysboro being 199 and Kingsland for 12 months being 188. And in that sense, so we can sort of we're sort of middle of the pack. And again, a lot of it has to do with these communities, and maybe we can figure out, is there similarities? Are we experiencing the same kinds of issues as these other communities? Would be something that Constable Tyerman might be able to touch on as well. One of the things that I like to do is to talk about what tools we have in our toolkits, or if you don't have a toolkit in your telephone, that would help with helping make your community safer. The first one is the 311 app. Now, 311, when I was growing up, was a telephone number. You called it, you mentioned there were potholes, you mentioned that there were lights burned out or whatnot. And what's happened is that the city of Calgary has taken and moved this onto an app on your phone. And so what you do is that once you have it on, you put in your personal information into the reporter section, and then if you see anything that's dangerous, if you see signs broken down, lights burnt out, anything like that, what you can do is not only can you report it, but you can also take a picture of it as well. And this is interesting because if this is something that a lot of people lodge complaints on, the greater the likelihood of the city taking action on fixing the problem. So that's just something that we'll touch on a little later then. But again, the city responds again to the squeaky wheel, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The nice thing about the app, of course, that in addition to tracking your own requests that you've put in, you can actually track all the requests that happen in your community. So if someone marks down that there's a problem in your community, you can just keep tabs of this and again, if it's and find out whether or not they're being addressed. So that's a really good thing. And I'd like the people to sort of keep that in mind, is that if everyone has the 311 app, and if you have a crime prevention committee that also uses the 311 app, it's a very good way. It is basically your direct connection to get the city to take action on your behalf. The second thing, of course, is the YYC Crime Stoppers. Again, any kind of crime you see in progress, there's a number you can report, which is the 1-800-222-8477. In addition to crimes, other things that can be reported are suspicious activity, abandoned buildings, those sorts of things. And again, one of the things that came up in previous crime prevention open houses is how abandoned buildings can be a place that can actually increase crime in an area, because you have your drug dealer would go in and sell drugs out of it. And as the users go to the site to buy the drugs and leave, they'll commit crimes going there and away. And in that sense, the more that the police can be made aware of abandoned buildings, the quicker that they can take action. The final app I'd like to talk about is, or the second final one, is Nextdoor, nextdoor.com. A good way to think of Nextdoor is that it's kind of like Facebook, but for the community that you live in. So what happens when you sign into Nextdoor, it asks you what community you're a part of, and you're only allowed to join and be verified for that community that you're in. And if you do send out any messages, it can go to your community and to the adjoining communities only. And so what this enables you to do is to be able to be very hyper-focused on areas of concern within the community. So the nice thing is that real names and verified addresses are in the system. It's local, so you're focusing on your area. And as a result, there's a value, because I'm not sure if you guys ever had it where you go and you want to buy something from, let's say, Facebook Marketplace, you find something really cool, and then you find out it's like way up in Simons Valley Ranch. Whereas what you can do is to go into Nextdoor, into their classified section, and you'll be able to find something, and you know it's going to be something in your community. You're very, very close. And so that's very good. Probably the greatest strength of Nextdoor, however, is that in addition to offering sort of like this idea of neighborhood watch, is that it does connect the community together. Some of the things that we've used it for in Marda Loop, for example, we've done a Christmas light walk where everybody who had a big Christmas light decoration would mark their address on Nextdoor so that kids could actually travel from house to house to house to look at Christmas decorations. We also had a trick-or-treating map. And when COVID first hit, when people were forced to self-isolate, it connected people who had to self-isolate with people who are willing to go to the grocery store and get the necessary groceries and everything that they would need so they can maintain their self-isolation. So it's a really great way of knitting the community together and getting them to work together. So that's fascinating. And again, it does work on the desktop, and it does work on the smartphone as well. So what I like about it is it does empower neighbors who might not otherwise connect to build a community and partner with, again, government to create stronger and more resilient neighborhoods. So if you take this, you say, take the three elements of a crime prevention committee, Nextdoor, and say the 311 app, then what happens is that the crime prevention committee can be monitoring the 311 app, find out that somebody said, okay, there's a burnt out streetlight. They can go and have all the members take pictures of it, put in a 311 complaint about that streetlight, and then go on to Nextdoor and saying, hey, everybody, when you get a chance, drop by this burnt out streetlight and register it and put the complaint in on your 311 app, and let's get this fixed. So it's a way of the community working together to fix these sorts of problems. And again, worked with burnt out streetlights, with damaged signs, with graffiti, and also, of course, with things like abandoned buildings, which we know can be one of the things that can lead to more crime. Finally, I'd like to put a shout out to bikeindex.org. What they do is you'd register your bike with them, and then if it does get stolen and then subsequently recovered by police, they're able to go in and get the registration number and return your bike. And the last time I did this was about a month ago, and it was $12 million of bikes recovered. So basically, in the last month, they've recovered another $1 million worth of bikes. And judging from sort of what I've heard on different crime prevention committees, probably the most trafficked stolen item in Canada are bicycles. A lot of that has to do with the fact that everybody wants a bike because of COVID restricting other forms of social and physical activity. So do make a note of that. And okay, so that's about it there. So what I'm going to do now is I'd like to introduce Constable Jake Tarman. Again, he's your community resource officer and has been for a number of years. He's also been very active in identifying, again, what I would consider environmental crime areas. Again, there was, I believe, a tunnel under Glenmore Trail, and Costello, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that they've actually taken action to close down because it was a nexus for crime. So take it away, Jake.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you.
Some technical issues. Good. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm glad we can do this. This is the first type of forum in our COVID world that we could communicate together, which is good. From the survey that Mark provided me, I had a chance to review it, and I wanted to comment on a couple things there. Most of the numbers looked, the perception, people's perception of crime is, it does appear pretty accurate to what is going on, like Mark, echo Mark a bit there. The one thing that kind of stood out to me is the robbery one, and where we have over 70% believe it's either a minor or a major problem. And I wonder if there's maybe just a clarification on people's understanding of what robbery is that might clear up a little bit. The criminal code defines robbery as the taking of property by force. So this would be somebody pushes down another person and steals their wallet or their phone or their purse, or in the case of a bank robbery, a person goes in and produces a weapon and threatens violence to obtain cash. That's a robbery. I think a lot of times I hear it on the street that people say, well, my house was robbed. Well, in Canada, we kind of define that different. That's a break and enter, or it's a theft from your property. So I don't know if maybe there's a different in perceptions of that. Robberies in Kingsland are almost non-existent. As for like what we would call a robbery roll job, they do occur occasionally, and typically they're at Heritage LRT if there are them. We have had a group committing robberies of cell phones, and they are young kids, as young as 13 and 14, and they've been around pretty much Bishop Grannon and Bishop of Burn. So there have been some robberies associated to those groups. Just to clear that up. Certainly the garage break and enters and the theft from vehicles are accurate in concern. They're not a huge issue, but they are growing. If we look back at Mark's stats, seeing some of the numbers are coming up. I will apologize for, I had our analysts try and pull stats today, and we're having a lot of troubles at CPS obtaining data right now. So I show, yeah, a slight increase. I've only got data up till the end of December. Break and enters were up a bit. Most of those would have been commercial or garage break and enters. Typically break and enters to houses are very rare. We maybe get 1 or 2 a month on a bad month. So they're pretty low. But the more common thing now is entry to vehicles, entry to backyards, and entry to open garages. Those are typically our main issues in the community. Again, as I've relayed this before, this is people who are drug addicted looking to obtain property that they can either trade for drugs or convert to cash to purchase drugs. Drugs are, and I've said this several times, are the single lowest common denominator in terms of crime, especially some of this nuisance crime and property crime. and it's generally the methamphetamines, which now are mixed with fentanyl. And we have a few areas within the community that those drug addicted people are gravitating to because there's a supply. I am currently working on about 3 different options to curb that, and those operations are in the works. Yeah, anything else, Mark, or anything else I could touch on?
I guess one thing I did notice that newspaper article about the closing of that tunnel.
Oh, yeah.
Could you sort of elaborate on that?
Yes, I can. That was a funny story because someone else headed up that project, and I had only been in this position for a couple weeks, and they told me I had to go on camera and talk about it, but I had nothing to do with it. But I can speak to it now. There was 2 underpasses, one under Glenmore, and also the one under McLeod Trail between the east, on the north side of Glenmore. It was an underpass, and those kind of areas allow drug addicted and homeless to kind of find a place of shelter. It's out of view where they can consume their drugs, sleep, try and stay warm, and those areas they'll gravitate to those kind of areas and erect what we kind of call homeless camps, makeshift camps, and that was especially when pedestrians are using those kind of walkways and stuff, and there's needles and foil and people are overdosing and using the bathroom wherever they want, those kind of things. It becomes a safety issue and a health issue. So that was the reason why we requested from the city to have it shut down. And unfortunately, it does push people to different areas. That's the challenge for people who are drug addicted and homeless. They need to want to get somewhere and get help. And one of the biggest challenges is them wanting to move in that direction. If they don't want to move in that direction, then they end up in your community, and which is what we struggle with. So either we need to overhaul how we address this issue socially and from a political level, and kind of and a policing level as well, or we're going to continue to see these kind of problems.
Okay, and there's just one question. When it comes to people that witness suspicious activity, how should they report it, and through which channels?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about reporting a little bit. So first of all, let's talk about the 911 call. So a 911 call is important in times of where you see a crime actively happening, where someone's in danger, where they require medical attention, or someone's being attacked, or you think they're being attacked, whether it's an accident or it's a crime in progress. 911 is typically an emergency thing where you see a crime occurring. It can be violent or it can be non-violent. For instance, the obvious one, your neighbor, the husband and wife are having a big argument and you hear glass breaking and sounds like somebody's being beaten. Those are times to call 911. If you see someone prowling your neighbor's backyard, that's a 911 call. It's a crime in progress. Someone car prowling, they're walking down the street and checking door handles. Feel free to call 911. That's car prowling. It's a crime in progress. The non-emergency line is used for crimes that have already occurred. So that don't require that immediate response from police. So if you were away for a couple days and you came home and your home was broken into or your car was broken into, that would be a non-emergency line. As long as there's nobody still in your house, which then again would be a crime in progress, then the non-emergency line. It's kind of for a historical crime. That being said, break and enters to homes, we prioritize that higher, so you're going to get a quicker response from police. Doesn't matter which number you call. So that's important. The other thing which we've expanded, especially due to COVID now, and limitations on resources on the street, is our online reporting system. Again, this is going to be crimes where you can't identify a suspect, where it might be just property crime, mischief to property, stuff like that. Can be, a simple car prowling where you don't have camera footage of it occurring, you don't know who did it, some minor things were stolen. That can be reported online, and those all come to me as well, and I track all those as well. So it is important, even for those minor things, to report those to me. I think what we saw from Mark's survey is that people feel that some of that minor crime is really important and it's ongoing, but sometimes the reporting numbers don't reflect that. And so it's important to continue to report those either way, and through those three systems. So does that answer or clear things up?
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are some criminals who've gotten thrifty in terms of being able to open overhead garage doors, either by pulling the emergency strap or triggering the remote somehow. Certainly there's lock plates that you can install on the door that either automatically or manually you can slide into the the channel that your garage door rollers go up and down, and then it's physically locked. My garage door opener at home, it has one of those that's automatic. So as soon as the door closes, there's a deadbolt that pops across and it's locked. So unless you trigger the remote, you cannot lift that door. So there are options like that. If you're going away for a long time, like let's say you're going away on holidays, just unplugging your garage door opener is an option that might help, but that doesn't help if they manually open it. Probably that manual lock or that automatic lock on your garage door opener, and any kind of garage door business would be able to help you with that. New trends in crime. I don't know if anything's super new. Crime doesn't typically change too much in my experience. There are some things which can occur. I could speak anecdotally. We've seen some new crime in terms of cloning of key fobs. For some of you who have newer vehicles that have the proximity keys, there's been some of these new cars, the ability to clone these keys, and the vehicles are stolen while they're locked and alarmed. We've seen a little bit of that. The only other area is kind of fraud tends to be a bit innovative in terms of trying to solicit money either through fake Kijiji ads requiring deposits, or I'm sure many of you might be familiar with the CRA calls that we get. That's kind of now old, but any of those kind of phone calls, phishing emails, Kijiji ads you have to be worried about, Facebook Marketplace, to just not provide anybody with money prior to obtaining the service or the product you're purchasing and you've seen it in person. And if the price seems too good to be true, it is. So if it's,
Good to know.
if it's not reasonable, it's probably not. So.
Okay. Next person is Teresa. Go ahead, Teresa.
We have a lot of empty properties in our neighborhood.
I think, yeah, to either report that Mark mentioned through 311, or if you can email me addresses of those locations, I can look at it. I can talk to bylaw. I can talk to city licensing and finding out what's going on with those properties. Many of you are probably familiar with the 5 or 6 houses on 7th Street at 75 Ave. We involved the Safer Communities group with that, and city licensing, and they were able to move that company forward with demolishing those houses, because we were having a lot of people trespass on there and stay, and they were living in there fully. So that was a problem for a while. But yeah, if you can get me any of those addresses, I will focus patrol on them, and I'll focus on finding out what the owners are doing and what plans they have, and then if it requires me to bring in SCAN or the Safer Homes and Communities group from CPS and others, we can work to shut them down. So really, that's a preference. I guess the advantage of the sensor light is if it's going off when somebody's there, you could be cognizant to it rather than just lights on all the time.
Could be sleeping.
That it's a personal choice. Sometimes it can be helpful for us if we are following a suspicious person in the community, like trying to find a car prowler, and we look down an alley and we got 3 sensor lights off. Well, that might be an indication they went that way. Sometimes it can help. On my personal residence, I have lights with photo switches on them, so they come on at dusk and turn off in the morning. So mine are on all the time, but I think that's a bit of a personal preference.
Okay. Thank you.
Mark, I could speak to one of the questions here in the thing. Catalytic converters they were really bad about a year ago. They kind of dropped off, and now we are seeing a few more of them now. Basically, with the price of platinum and other precious metals being so high, the thieves, of course, are cutting them off of the exhaust system on vehicles, and they can sell them at the recyclers for anywhere between $500 and $1,000 for one. There is an operation ongoing on this, specifically targeting this. No metal recycler is allowed to take a catalytic converter without the seller providing 2 pieces of ID. And we are tracking all of the individuals who are selling high amounts of catalytic converters so to the recyclers. So we're tracking them, and we have made some arrests. Yeah, it's a huge expense, especially to businesses. I had in the Fairview Industrial, I had 2 over the weekend, and some of them can be, I think even one they took up in a different one, they took a diesel particulate filter which is worth about $12,000 on the 5-ton truck, plus the time that truck's not working and in service, it's lost revenue for the company. So it's a huge issue. So it's a huge cost.
Okay. Just a quick show of hands. Just how many people here live in either like a condo complex or apartment?
I think for the public and the community members, is just again to report suspicious things and suspicious activity that is not consistent with normal home ownership. So we've run into this, and I get a lot of tips and stuff from community members, and they will say things like, you know, these people moved in a few months ago. I think they might be renters or maybe they're owners. I don't know, but you know, vehicles are coming and going at all hours. They stay for like 2 or 3 minutes and then they're gone. Someone comes out to meet them. Those kind of things are, you know, just if you see something that's strange in that regard, that isn't consistent with normal home ownership. That's the simplest way I can put it. Then yeah, report it. In terms of people reporting stuff to me who don't want to be witnesses, this becomes an issue legally. So I just also want to make people aware that Crime Stoppers is an option if you want anonymity for those kind of tips. As for what I'm doing, I can't speak to what I'm doing exactly, Anne, just because I've got some investigative tools going on that I can't disclose. But I do have, yes, I have targeted locations. I've identified most of the parties involved, and I'm working on building enough evidence so I can lay charges. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, next person is Randy. So we're now at 10 past 8, and I'm just going to call the meeting to a close. I'd like to thank everybody for taking an interest in making the community safer and taking the opportunity to get to know one another and the issues in their area. I feel that working with your community association, again, I'd like to recognize Janine from the Kingsland Community Association, who's on this call, and someone that you can reach out to as well if you're interested in getting involved. Again, the whole idea is that if we can coordinate our efforts, again, with a crime prevention committee, start utilizing those free social media tools, then I think that there's an excellent way that we can make the community safer and the community better for everyone. So again, thank you very much. And thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you.